You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Osmanski, a one-timer deflected side of the goal. Alexandrov scores! Hosted
by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the T-Birds in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney. And this episode number 25 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing. Their new location in Amherst and in Tower Square in downtown Springfield, your go-to pregame spot for Thunderbirds games. And also by our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting, bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. And we have a new sponsor we're proudly happy to have on board, Landscaping That Fitz. Proudly serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, and Wilbraham area. Matt, homeowner just like myself, when we talk about springtime and getting our lawn care ready, now's the time, babe. February is the time to get that situated. So Landscaping That Fits. We're very happy to have them on board. And big thank you to Rob, who's a longtime Thunderbirds fan who wanted to get involved with his company. And so we're happy to have him and their company on board as well. Matt Baker alongside. I am Steve Forney. And Matt, how are you? It's good to talk to you again.
I'm doing well. Welcome back to the cold New England weather there, Steve. Looks like you guys had a nice trip down there in sunny Florida.
Yeah, sunny for a little bit. It was pretty rainy for a little bit, and the temperatures never really climbed out of the 70s. So I'm a heat guy. Giving me hot. Yeah. I'll take hot all day, and but no, the kids had fun, man. That's what it's all about, you know?
Yeah, and it's probably, that's a little bit more pleasant with kids being down in Disney for, you don't want 100-degree weather, then you really, that's not much fun either, so.
Right. But no, there's something about those Mai Tais that just go down easier when it's nice and hot. So, but no, we had a good time, and like I said, the kids, very blessed, man. My kids are a blast to be with, and they were troopers, and we had a good time. So
that's good.
I was able to obviously get back for the game on Friday, which was my travel day, a little hectic. And then obviously we have the 3 games over the weekend to discuss. Just up front, I don't know if there was a game that I found as a fan more frustrating all season than Sunday. I was so annoyed with the way that game went.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to get into all that. But Matt, here we are recording on a Monday, and we had some pretty serious roster news that went down today, and maybe you can fill in the people on what that's all about and what we're looking at.
Yeah, so it's about time we kind of have time working on our side here, where news is kind of breaking before we record. So this is good. Big news coming in from St. Louis. They are sending back down Matt Kessel, which he will be welcomed back here in Springfield. Falk has returned from his injury stint. So they have him back. They have Scotty P back up in St. Louis, and really needed a roster space for Falk. So Kessel, who is a player who has been playing really great hockey for St. Louis. I have not been following them as close as I am the T-Birds, but for the most part, playing really good hockey. We always knew he had the skills. We kind of, joked about it at the beginning of the year that he kind of just finds himself in unlucky situations, right? He's kind of eliminated that from his game. He was playing great hockey here in Springfield, played great in St. Louis. And he's a player that doesn't have to clear waivers. We've been talking not a lot about this over the season, but basically how his contract is he's a two-way player, so he can go up and down as needed. So I think the fact that he doesn't have to clear waivers for the Blues is kind of why he's being sent back down. I think it has nothing to do with his play, and I would fully expect him to kind of be the next defensive call-up, or even, as not looking too far ahead into the future, but probably not long for Springfield, which we're happy for. We've always said that all the time. So Matt Kessel's back in Springfield, and another returning face, Mitchell Holscher from the Orlando
Solar Bears.
Solar Bears. I always want to call them the Sun Dogs. I don't know why. Because what's a solar bear?
It's a polar bear in the sun, I guess.
I guess that's what they have in Orlando.
It's a great logo, though. It's an awesome logo. I love it.
Yes. Mitchell Holscher is being called up, and as well as Tanner Dickinson is being recalled up. So I think for me, my first thought goes to the injuries right now on Springfield. We know Pekka's been out the last 2 games. I did see him kind of take that puck on Friday against Hartford. It was, I think, Suzuki's goal. It looked like he kind of came off the ankle. I did see him Saturday night in the healthy scratch area, sitting next to PK Subban, which was actually pretty cool. He wasn't wearing a boot, and it didn't look like he had too much of a limp. So I'm not reporting anything on injuries, but it didn't appear too serious. It didn't. But then we also have Hugh McGing, who kind of left the game Sunday with an apparent injury. I don't have any information other than he did not return to the game Sunday. So hopefully it's not too serious for Hugh McGing. And then the other big news that broke a few hours before we started to record is the Jacob Vrana suspension. AHL issued a 2-game suspension to Jacob Vrana, which means he will miss the next 2 games. A big one against Providence, so that will hurt them. So I feel like the injury to McGing and this suspension to Vrana is making sense now to where these 2 call-ups for Holscher and Dickinson will fit in. You got any thoughts on these call-ups and send-downs?
Well, yeah, I mean, on those 2 players coming up, I think that the team's kind of out of options. I mean, the fact that they had to dress 7 defensemen on Sunday and 11 forwards just because of the sheer number of bodies they had, it was telling. And then you lose McGing, then you lose Vrana. Admittedly, I did not see the Vrana cross-check because at that point I was so frustrated with the game, I just turned it off. I think it happened in the last 30 seconds or so.
Let me talk about that because I actually did see it and kind of thought, oof, that's not going to be good. I think I'm going to be talking a little bit about Vrana as this episode goes on, but you could tell he was frustrated. It came within the last 24 seconds of the game there. He was up high with a stick and cross-checked. I don't know who it was. I don't remember who it was. Up near the throat neck area. It definitely it happened. It wasn't a I think 2 games probably justified. Probably wouldn't be surprised if there's also some sort of financial levy there as well. He got the stick up high and he knows better than that. You can tell he's frustrated. You can tell he's aggravated. I think, one thing I noticed about Vrana, and this has happened multiple times throughout this season. It happened against Providence Saturday night. I noticed in the, I believe it was the first period or maybe the third period. I don't know. It was when.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I'm going to say the third period.
The third period when he kind of ran into Bussy.
Oh no, I was thinking about a time when there was a scrum and he got hit in the face, and the refs didn't call it, and he was going up to the refs, holding his face, but I think he was bleeding, and he's like, "Yeah, are you serious? Like I'm bleeding," or maybe this was the same thing, but he got hit in the face and there was no call, and now he's
so that was part of what there was also a moment when he kind of took out Bussy a little bit. And afterwards, I've always seen him. There was one game where he shot the puck just after the whistle. You can tell he's the type of player when he makes a mistake, he right away puts his hands up. Sorry, not intentional. After he kind of took out Bussy a little bit, he kind of went up to him and gave him a little stick tap on the pads. Sorry, nothing personal kind of thing. You can tell he just. I'm assuming here. and making assumptions. He's just that type of player that isn't a dirty player. I
doesn't
think
want to
that's fair
ruffle
to
any
say.
feathers
Yeah,
either.
he wants to play. He wants to use his skill. He wants to beat you with his skill. He's not looking to gain advantages by playing dirty. Now going back to, I didn't watch him that closely Friday night, but watching the game Saturday, you can tell I think he was getting a little roughed up and getting a little frustrated starting Saturday. Some extra hand washing. I think to his skill set against the Bruins. I don't know if you remember the play early. He just turns on the NHL speed, and he was giving up like 2 strides to a Providence player and ended up getting in on Bussy to get a shot off. I think it was early in the game. So I think he's just getting frustrated with maybe being down in the AHL. To level the playing field, maybe guys are holding them a little bit more than they normally would because they have to. They can't keep up with his speed. They can't keep up with, maybe his shot. And maybe it's just getting to him a little bit. And then it just, I think, boiled over and carried over to Sunday afternoon. And at the end of the game, he just had enough. You can tell it was a clear, intentional stick up high, cross check to the throat face area. So,
it's interesting. I do think teams like Providence this weekend took liberties a little bit on him, but I think they knew that he's not going to respond physically.
Yeah.
Like there are guys who get treated a little rough by the other team and they respond physically.
Mm-hmm.
There are guys who get treated rough by the other team and look to the refs.
Yeah.
And Verana's not the kind of guy who's going to respond physically. And so
yes.
if you're Providence and you can throw out those third and fourth line, those big bodies, and you can get into his space and you can get into his psyche and you can knock him around and push him around, you're going to frustrate the heck out of him. And I think that's kind of exactly what happened. I mean, even a guy like Gaudette, who I don't think of as a physical guy, Saturday night they were doing the same thing to him, but he was ready to fight. I mean, he
responds back, right? He does.
Right. He doesn't take it and he stands up and he's helmet knocked off, ready to drop the gloves. Like, who wants them?
Yeah.
And
same thing with like a Joey Duzak, who is
right.
is a bit of an undersized defenseman, right? But he'll push back. Let me ask you this, and this might not be the most professional type of conversation to have. I don't want to do too much speculating, but
lay it on me.
Here's a question: why, knowing that is Verana's type, I agree with you. Does that then fall on anybody else to
respond physically?
Stick up, to stand up for Verana? I would think yes, and so a bigger question is, why isn't anyone else?
Well, I mean, I think it's something we've talked about this roster is I don't know who's going to do it. I mean, it's when he's playing with Zach Dean or Suzuki or Gaudette or there's just not your physical presence around the fourth line, and so if he was playing with a Drew Callen, Kean Washcrook, even a Will Bitten, I would expect that to happen, but he's not playing with. There's never a time where there's other guys on the ice that are willing to physically respond. It's not going to be Dylan Coughlin. It's not going to be Callie Rosen. Joey Duzak can only carry you so far physically. I mean, we saw it with Hunter Skinner on Friday night when, I think it was Lecision hit Washcrook and not only did Skinner step right in, but he pasted him. And Lecision had a by the third period, that thing was blue and swollen on his face from Hunter Skinner, who again didn't play on Sunday either. So, and I also think a part of it is just the frustration of the game. That game, Sunday. As a fan, I was so frustrated I turned it off. I can imagine the frustration for the fans, but you can't. If there's one incident that happens, you can come back a shift later, a period later, and you can respond to that particular player. When you're just constantly getting, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like when they're just keep nudging you over and over again, it's not like you can say, "Hey, Sam Bitten, go out there and knock somebody's block off," because it wasn't one thing that happened like it was with Washcrook. So
sure.
I don't think they have the physical, the physical and the skilled players to respond. Like one of the reasons Justin Brazeau got called up to Providence, because not only is he 6'5" and he can fight, but he's also got 20 goals. So he's playing on the second line. Same thing with Matt Rempe, who's now up with the Rangers, 6'8", but now he's also scoring. So he's not buried on the fourth line. He's playing bigger minutes. And, oh, by the way, you're going to go after a Jake Lecision or whoever it is. Matt Rempe's going to on the ice to step up. He can play and protect and enforce his line mates. So I just don't think that there's the style of player playing alongside Vrana. You know, and I think the closest thing would have probably been Will Bitton, but I don't think Will was playing a lot on that line, especially Saturday. He was mostly playing on a line with his brother. So I just don't think that there's the bodies, to be honest.
Yeah. Then that's possible. You know, those are two things that stand out to me. I don't think it's in Vrana's character to respond physically. And I just think he's kind of just being nudged and frustrated, and you know, it came to a head. So
it's working.
It is, you know, and this, I guess, second stint here in Springfield for Vrana hasn't been as electric as his first. I think his first, would he have 9 points in 7 games or whatever it was, his first 7 games, and then he went back up to St. Louis for a few weeks and then came back down. And you know
what I think a part of it is, I think for a player like this, reality is starting to set in.
Yeah.
Like, you get sent down once and you're down there and you're like, all right, let me come down here, grind it out for 5 games and then go back up. You get sent back down and then you're watching guys like Bolduc get called up ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's your second stint and you're the reality is setting in, like, oh no, like, it doesn't matter what I'm getting paid. I don't know if I'm going to get that shot again this season, even. So, I think the reality is setting in a little bit for that player, that he's got a lot of work to do before he heads back to the NHL, and a 2-game suspension is not going to help him at all. So,
yeah, well, and if we can kind of bridge over to now the NHL trade deadline rapidly approaching. I know Vrana was a guy I was kind of thinking about, does a team hop in? But at this point now, I don't know why you would. I mean, I think it's not so much a skill where he's needing to work on. I think it's more of an attitude and effort at practice or something like that. Body language with other teammates. I think those sorts of things can go a long way in the AHL. And if you're getting suspended 2 games, if you're not really scoring a lot of goals in the AHL, no team is trading for you now at the deadline.
I think the biggest thing is the contract. I mean, you're getting. I'm on Spotrac right now, and he's a $5.25 million cap hit.
Yeah,
and he's going to be a free agent at the end of next year. He'll be 28 years old. But again, if the Blues want to, be on the hook for some of that contract and trade him, I think maybe that would work. But other than that, I just don't know if anybody's going to want that contract, to be honest. So
not at this point in the year. I mean, I think any chance of him, and he'll probably be able to get his way out of St. Louis at the end of this year. But I think for this year, I think I think your point is well taken, where reality has now set in, and hey, I'm in Springfield for the rest of the season. I think his first time around, I think he was happy to be here, and thought, hey, if I do my work right and kind of pay my dues, and then I get brought back up, I'm good. Not the case for whatever reason. I don't want to speculate too much.
I hear you. I did just want to real quick go back to Matt Kessel and Lou Korak, who's a great follow. He covers the Blues for NHL.com and for the Hockey News. He put together a little video because Blues fans are really upset that Kessel got sent down. And Lou mentioned that one of the things that he's been doing really well is bumping up and boosting the game of Torrey Krug. I guess it's been him and Torrey Krug, and he's been really playing to Krug's strengths. But sort of like you said, and what Lou said, is that it's the simple, easy, cheap transaction. Like 10 times out of 10, any team is going to make this move.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker's got to go through waivers. Alexandrov's got to go through waivers. Walker, Perunovic, Toropchenko, they all have to go through waivers. So why not just send down the kid who doesn't need to go through waivers, who's playing 14 minutes a night in the third line? Now you can send him down, let him play 25 minutes a night, and expectations are kind of dominate a little bit. So shout out to Lou, and I think he's a really good follow on social media, and he's got really good articles coming out of Blues games. I think I don't get to watch the games, but I get more from Lou post game about the Blues than I do actually watching the game. So, but I just thought that was an interesting take, and I think that's going to be beneficial for us because I think we're going to get into it here. But Callie Rosen got hurt Sunday, never came back. Hunter Skinner got hurt Saturday. He came back for a little bit, but didn't play Sunday. You're dressing 7 defensemen and it's Malmstrom and Osmanski and no, I don't want 7 defensemen, Malmstrom, Osmanski. I want Matt Kessel and 12 healthy forward bodies. So and that's
good news. Good news for the Thunderbirds kind of moving forward a little bit here is that they do have another 3-3 coming up. So they got Wednesday off. If there's a good thing about having kind of back-to-back 3-3s, really they have 3 3-3s in a row.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
brutal stretch in March.
It is. But they have kind of this week, hopefully get healthy and ice and rest. And hopefully that's really all that Matthew Pekka needed. But yeah, I mean, we've been pretty fortunate to be the first third of the season pretty healthy, not really any injuries at all to speak of. Now they're kind of coming in bunches. So,
and for Thunderbirds fans, for you people who have been asking, guess what happens when there's injuries? Sam Bitten gets to play.
Yes.
And I don't know if anybody had a better weekend other than maybe Zach Dean, but Sam Bitten was sort of all over the place Friday and Saturday. He was an animal. And then he gets the goal on Sunday. You're happy for that kid. I'm glad I got to actually see him play. I don't know if he's good. I don't know if he's good because I don't get to see him play. So now we kind of have a gauge, a barometer of, and there were times where he was out of position. There were times where he had a split decision to make and he made the wrong one. But I mean, again, when you're 23 and you haven't played since Christmas, whatever it is, it takes a little adjustment. And I'll tell you that goal on Sunday, it wasn't so much the goal. It was the attitude, the awareness, the positioning, crash the cage, stick on the ice, both pass your defenseman, don't run into the goalie. I just thought that entire sequence was really, really good from Sam Bitten. And I hope the fans are now happy to see him.
Yeah. He's going to be playing more with these injuries. I think too, I don't think you can deny, and when we had the Bitten brothers on the show, Will kind of alluded to this too. They have tremendous chemistry, understandably. So I think when you put a guy like Sam Bitten on your fourth line, I don't know if you can do this moving forward with some of the injuries we have on this roster, but when you can put a guy like Will Bitten on your fourth line, I think that elevates your whole lineup. When they're playing together, I don't think that's a typical fourth line. I don't think it's worth losing that much on your first two lines if you can put, and this is what they did, I believe, on Saturday, where you're putting a Will Bitten with Sam on the fourth line, their chemistry together is not, in my opinion, like typical of a fourth line pairing. Usually your fourth lines are the guys who are in and out, haven't played in a while, and they kind of mix and match a little bit. They have chemistry and they can put together some nice series, some good shifts together. But I just want to echo again, happy for Sam. Congratulations. He's a guy who his number hasn't been called all that often, but when his number is called, you're getting max effort from him. I had the privilege of, over the vacation week, kids club has the practice, and we're watching the practice, and I'm kind of looking at body language at practice, and look, I don't get all the scheme and all the other the stuff that's going on, that with coaches yelling this, that, and the other thing, but I will tell you, 20 minutes before practice starts, Josh Jacobs is out there in his rehab jersey. He's doing rehab, and Sam Bitten's out there in his shorts and a t-shirt with shoes on, just doing some stick handling right out of the bench before anybody else. I will tell you, Sam Bitten is the last one off the ice as well. So, little things like that are noticed by me. And so I'm that makes it a little bit extra of a, congratulations, attaboy, good for you. The work is being put in regardless of how much ice time he's getting in the games. He's putting in the work behind the scenes at practice. So proud that hard work is paying off for him.
And, his fight against Providence, I think, was a bit of a momentum shifter.
Sure.
When you win a fight, you lose the fight. When you stand up like that, you start slapping the 104th Fighter Wing patch on your jersey, like on Military Appreciation Night, like that. That's big. I mean, that's big for the arena. You could feel the whole vibe kind of change. And, granted, they still didn't win the game, but I thought that was just awesome to see. This kid's got so much energy. He gets so fired up. And, to your point about Will Bitton on the fourth line, the nice thing about Will is you think, well, he's on the fourth line. He's not playing as much, but he still kills penalties, and you can put him on the power play.
Yeah.
He's on the fourth line maybe, but they had 4 penalties and 5 power plays. So, I mean, he's still all over the ice. It's just that. And then when you get to Sunday and you're double shifting, you have 11 forwards, right? So somebody's going to have to play more minutes. You can put him, say, second line, fourth line, and if he's in a rotation on the second line or the third line, whatever it is, you could get more minutes out of him and still have him on the fourth line playing with Sam. So, so it's interesting. So we do have the games to get into, which we are going to get into. We also have something kind of special coming up here. We have somebody that we just wanted to hear from and let you guys hear from as well. But first, we wanted to just remind you that the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly sponsored by White Lion Brewing, their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street, and in downtown Springfield at Tower Square, 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Thunderbirds games. Parking is a little bit tricky, especially this weekend. 2 sold-out crowds. Parking was tricky to say the least. So you can park in the Tower Square garage, show the people at White Lion your Thunderbirds ticket, and they'll validate your parking for you. And while you're there, get some Boomer Nachos, Seuss Mac and Cheese, some Hall of Fame wings, along with any of the 20-plus beers they have. Don't forget, you can find your favorite White Lion beers in your local liquor store cooler. White Lion Brewing, now in Amherst and in downtown Springfield, a proud local sponsor of the SRG podcast. Make sure you tell Ray Berry and the boys that the SRG podcast sent you. Also by our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting. They offer education, training, tutoring, coaching, and mentoring for healthcare professionals and students. Founding owners Yolanda Mero and Lola Rios are doctorate-prepared nurses with over 40 years combined bedside, academic, and leadership nursing experience. They also offer assistance to individuals navigating the healthcare system for long-term care and home care planning needs. Founded right here in Western Mass, YOLO Healthcare Consulting are the ones to contact to help you bridge the gap if you're traversing the healthcare landscape. You can reach out to them at yolo.healthcareconsulting@gmail.com, or you can give them a call at 413-627-0609. That's 413-627-0609. Tell them that the guys from SRG sent you. And again, we are very excited to have another sponsor. Again, somebody that's right there in the building, just like you guys are at these games. And it's our friends at Landscaping That Fitz. Spring is in the air, and that means it's time to revitalize your outdoor space with Landscaping That Fitz, proudly serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, and Wilbraham area. As the temperatures rise, the ground begins to thaw. It's the perfect time for a refreshing spring cleanup. Let's prepare your outdoor space for the blooming season. And again, if those leaves that were on the grass in September, they're still there. And if they're still there any longer, the grass ain't going to grow. So you might as well call the guys at Landscaping That Fitz and get that springtime cleanup. Let them handle the hard work while you sit back and enjoy the beauty of your yard. With landscaping that fits, your lawn will be the envy of the neighborhood. You can call them today at 413-847-0338 to schedule your lawn care service needs. They are online at landscapingthatfits.com. They're also on Facebook. You can check their social media, but that's Landscaping That Fits, FITZ.com. Landscaping That Fits, FITZ.com. And we're thrilled to have those guys on board as well. And again, it's nice to see, again, we talk about local businesses supporting other endeavors. We got 3 of them right there, right here in the 413, helping us out, and we're glad that we can help them out as well.
I love it. I love, we are 413 and the fact that not only are these businesses and companies local to us here, they're also, you could find them in the Thunderdome every game. And,
right.
And that's just that, that's great to see. And
Rob's
have everybody on board.
Yeah, Rob's a great dude. Trust me, you if you don't know who he is, you recognize him at the Thunderdome. So we're so happy to have them on board. And we did just want to take a quick minute to talk to a friend of ours, Fred Warren, who is the CEO of United Arc. Fred just wanted to kind of give a quick shout out to the Thunderbirds for one of the things that they're doing for him and his organization, which deals with special needs children. It's an organization that's all over Western Mass, and they just do God's work. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. So let's talk to Fred Warren from United Arc. And it's a pleasure right now to be joined by Fred Warren, the CEO of United Arc. And Fred's got some really wonderful things to say about not only his organization, but what the Thunderbirds are doing as well for, again, another wonderful Western Mass community organization. Fred, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, Steve. Matt, it's great to be with you guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Can you tell us a little bit about United Arc and what you guys do in a nutshell over there?
Sure. United Arc is one of the nonprofit organizations in the Pioneer Valley. Our specific organization focuses on supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We also work with parents who are looking to keep their families intact, and we work with kids who just need some support and getting through the challenges of life nowadays. So a pretty amazing organization, pretty historic, actually, been around for 75 years. Doing some great work, and we're very honored and lucky to have had the opportunity for the Thunderbirds to reach out to us, see if we could get a group of people to attend the game on Sunday, the sensory-friendly game, which really ties into some of the individuals that we work with and support. So it's just a great opportunity. We couldn't say yes quick enough, and everybody that we've been in contact with from the team has just been awesome. So super excited to have this opportunity.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, how big of a group do you guys have going to the game? And
it's funny. I was just reaching out. As of right now, it's probably about 25 or 30. We're hoping to be up to around 50 by the end of tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So we can really make a good, have a nice, good, loud section. We definitely have some pretty loud people as part of our. So hopefully we could cheer on the Thunderbirds to a victory.
That's great.
So Fred, how did that process work? Someone reached out to you from the team have you guys worked with the team in the past, or was this kind of a random thing, or how did that process work?
Yeah, what we've really focused on over the past year is trying to find as many different opportunities for our folks to get the opportunity to have some time, socialize, be part of the community that along those lines. And so we've had some sporting games. A couple of people went to a Pats game, a couple Red Sox games in there. But we have a group of people who just absolutely love hockey. And so we had reached out to the Thunderbirds. There was a couple questions we needed to ask them. And during the course of that conversation, our events coordinator and some of the folks from the Thunderbirds had gotten onto the topic of the game this Sunday on the 3rd. And from there, it just led to this opportunity for us to be able to put a crew together to go down there.
That's wonderful.
That's great. Fred, with the United Arc, are there like an age group that you specifically work with school age children, young adults, or do you kind of work with all ages?
Yeah, between the programs that we have currently, I believe it's about 14 different programs. We really do have services for really probably age 10 to depending on what situation you're in. It could be all the way through the end of life, but in most cases, probably 60s or 70s. Once people get to a spot where they need a little bit more from a medical standpoint, then they would move on to a different organization. But it's pretty wide ranging. The number of folks we usually work with in a given year, we work with probably about 1,000 different families or individuals. Of that number, probably about 125, 150 are with us throughout the year. Some of the and the others are ones that will be with our organization and getting support from us for anywhere between 6 and 9 months. So it's quite a large group, and we provide services from the Berkshires all the way out to Worcester, up and down 91. So it's really a full Western Mass organization that that I'm proud to be a part of.
Yeah, it looks like it just keeps expanding, and there's a ton of different offices. And again, folks can get more information on the website, which I want you to talk a little bit about coming up. But if you know somebody or you think of somebody that might benefit from this program, definitely feel free to check out the website. And Fred, I want to give yourself a little plug too here, if people want to, because you are a nonprofit. So if people want to help contribute, if they want to volunteer, if they want to become part of your organization, whether in person or financially or however they can contribute, can you give us a little more information about how the listeners can go about doing that?
Sure, and I really, really appreciate that. So for any donation that people might feel comfortable in providing, again, those donations, we really try to utilize that in a way that's going directly to support our individuals, as opposed to some organizations which will use that funding to support salaries or things that administrative wise. Really try to use those funds to make sure that we're providing as many of those community type programs as possible. People could go online. There is a link on the website where you could donate. Certainly, if somebody wanted to reach out, see if there's other ways, just sending something to us, whatever it might be. Any donation is tax deductible because we are a registered nonprofit. So, that's one thing that we can, give back, at least to say thank you for anybody's generosity from that standpoint. But I really do think that it is important that we have an obligation to anybody who's willing to support our organization to make sure that we are using those funds and that gift to the best of our ability to make sure that there's actually value for the individuals that we support and serve.
And you guys do have all kinds of events going on. You just had Arcapalooza earlier this month. You got everything from clubs and youth clubs and transitions and information for parents as to how to sort of navigate this lifestyle really as a parent. And that website, theunitedarc.org. That's theunitedarc.org, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, and you're right on. And not only even if people just have questions, we have some extremely tenured, very knowledgeable folks as part of our organization, and there isn't a week that goes by where someone might stop in and just have some general questions, and our folks will take the time to help them navigate the challenges, whether or not it's somebody that might benefit from one of the programs that we serve and support. We just had a conversation recently with an individual whose sister lives in Oregon, and she's had some challenges she's had to work throughout her life. And he was really stuck in terms of how he could best support her. And so we were able to hook him up with a couple of our staff members who could point him in the direction of some of the benefits and things that he could do to try to make sure that he was doing the best he could for his sister. So, like you said, there are a myriad of programs that we serve or that we provide. But if people do have questions and are just looking for information as to what's out there, to help them navigate some of the challenges that they might be facing or a loved one might be facing, they can certainly give us a call or reach out to us.
That's amazing. I think
That's
you're
great.
doing God's work, man. I think that's so wonderful what you guys are able to provide to our community. And again, that's theunitedarc.org. And Fred Warren, who is the CEO of that company, we really appreciate you taking the time. And again, we're proud that the Thunderbirds are doing that for you. But I don't know. I think organizations like you guys in the Miracle League, and I think that you guys are all do such amazing things, and it really does warm my heart, especially as a parent. Just kind of warms my heart a little bit. So
Yeah,
I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, there goes Fred Warren from United Arc, and just glad to have him on again. It's just that organization does such amazing work for the people who I think need it the most.
Mhm.
And it's nice, again, a nice tip of the hat to the Thunderbirds for what they do for, again, other organizations here in the 413 that are doing great work. And shout out to, Frank and all the people in the front office that make these kind of things happen. And Fred really just was so excited for the opportunity that he wanted to make sure that he came on and talked about the sensory awareness game that's coming up.
Absolutely. And, both of us as teachers, we work with students, different ages, different ability levels, and it's wonderful to see organizations working together to give everybody an enjoyable experience that sort of, everybody has the opportunity to enjoy the hockey game. So great to see and glad to have Fred on.
So when we look back at the 3 games, we're not going to spend a ton of time necessarily on them, but who knows, we might, because we like to talk.
It's what we do.
I sort of made a list of pros and cons.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
Things that were good and things that were not good. And you can interrupt me here at any time, but I guess we'll start with the good. I thought that on Hartford, they had a solid 60-minute effort against a team that they needed to beat, and we talked about that. Their 6th game in 8 nights. They looked tired. They needed to put their foot down on the pedal, and they did. I thought they had a solid effort in that loss against Providence. I think that, and bless you, Thunderbirds fans, I really didn't think the officiating went in their favor. I think Friday night we were spoiled with a Casey Terreri game, and this is not just because he came on the podcast and he listens all the time. What's up, Casey? Casey Terreri's games, I think, are hectic. They're intense. They're physical, but they're clean.
Are they? And I would add predictable. I think we talked about this
consistent.
Too.
I mean, consistent.
Yeah, that's what I mean. From a player, what you're going to get. And I think, regardless of whether it's the right call, the wrong call, the calls for us, the calls against us, when you kind of as a player know what to expect, I think that can go a long way. I don't think that can be said for all the games this past weekend, but for a Friday night with Casey Terreri, I would agree. I think that's sort of, you know what you're getting.
And again, consistency, but I don't think I've ever seen 4 roughing calls all at the same time.
Yeah.
Which happened in that game. And Casey cracks me up because he comes over to give us the penalty, and he's like, Springfield, Hartford. Then he looks over there and he goes, all of them, 2 minutes roughing. And that was okay. Well, whoever comes to the box is getting a roughing call. It was 2 either side, 5-on-5. Good communication with the players, good communications with us. Again, I thought, and it's one of those things, but these referees on Saturday, they call a penalty. They don't tell. It's all nonverbal communication. And the ref's job is to look at us and say, they point one direction. Springfield, number 34, 2 minutes, tripping. Mm-hmm. These guys don't. They're just like 2 minutes slash. And you're like, okay, well, but who, where, what team, what player, what jersey? Like, I got really frustrated on Saturday night with those guys because there was such little communication with us. Mm-hmm. And that's really important for the off-ice officials to get that communication. So I think we got a little spoiled as well by the Casey Terreri game. And I think that it seemed to me the game moved way too fast and was way too intense for those guys on Saturday. I thought Providence plays fast. They play hard. And Springfield played up to that tempo. And I just don't think that the officials were able to meet that intensity. I didn't get a great look on the Bitten goaltender interference call that obviously got to the Zach Dean goal. I did talk to Will briefly when he was in the box, and Will's hilarious, and he's like, I think his quote was, "I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I mean, I live there. It's in like I live in the crease. That's my home is right in front of the goal." But his point was, I live there. Like, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? And it seemed to me like that was the instance where he was in the crease and he got pushed into the goalie and what he's supposed to do. And I don't think the refs necessarily knew how to handle that. But I don't know if you, from where you were, if you got a good view of that whole situation or.
So we were sitting up in section 18. We kind of went away from our normal defensive zone. So we were up in 18, which is on the other side. I couldn't see it that way. I mean, but it looked like he kind of got pushed or carried into Bussy there for the goalie interference. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. That's just a big call in a big spot. And
I mean, if look, it's really, really hard for a ref. If a player on team A is laying on top of the goalie of team B and the puck goes in, how do you not blow the whistle?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't just allow that to happen. But you can call 2 penalties. I mean, that should have been 2 for goaltender interference, 2 for cross-checking, 4-on-4.
Yeah.
You know, there are other ways to handle it besides, and again, I understand the frustration from the fans when, Zach Dean pots that shot in and then everybody goes bananas and then it gets called off. And I get that, but it's really, really hard for those officials to justify when Will Bitten's laying on top of the goalie and the puck goes in, a play that the goalie probably could have saved. At the same time, if he was pushed in, then you can make 2 calls. I mean,
that's what it looked like to me. I mean, it kind of looked like he was at least carried in and assisted onto Bussy there. So for me, I mean, and it's the AHL. I mean, I kind of lean towards, if you're getting pushed into, it's like the NFL, roughing the passer kind of thing. If you're blocked into or roughing the punter, if you're pushed into the punter, there's also not much you can do there. So I think it was a combination of Will's momentum going towards the net. I think, it did look like he kind of was pushed into him a little bit. But you would still like to see that not be necessarily the defining moment of a game. You still had all this being said, we still had a third period to play so I just look at it as, sure, it that could have tied it up. You still needed a goal in the third period to get the win, which you didn't get anyway. So, and
to me, that wasn't even the most egregious. The non-call cross-check in overtime.
Right or not at overtime, but right at the end.
Okay.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, the one on
yes,
Gaudette.
That one. How do you not call that?
And
man,
and he was really mad, and I don't blame him. I mean, he was fiery at the end of that one. I don't blame him. So not an ideal night for the Stripes in that one. There were some players that I thought played really well this weekend. I thought Drew Callen was excellent. I thought he was great in the faceoffs. I thought he did what you want and more for your 4th line center. I thought Hunter Skinner gets better and better every game. I thought him stepping up for Kean Washkruk was big, even though he got 2, 5, and 10, which I think was probably the right call. You also pulled Jake Lecision off the ice for 5 minutes, who's their best player, and you stuck up for your teammates. So I think even Coach Kachuk said after the game, like, he'll take that. Like, that was a good penalty. I thought Colton Ellis was great. I think that Jamison Reese, we talked about getting him more minutes. I think that he showed what he's capable of on the offensive side of the puck. And again, my guy, Joey Duzak, I just think is the most underrated player on this team. There were times on Sunday, since they had 7 defensemen dressed, where he was playing forward. Yeah. And, I go back to the interview we had with him at White Lion, where he said, I started off as a forward, but I moved to defense. And I think it's important for players to know how to play everywhere. And that was example A, where he was like, I'll go play forward. And I thought he looked good. I mean,
I thought he played fine.
He looked like he belonged. I mean, he was playing the blue line properly and setting guys up. And I thought that he was really good. So tip of the hat to those guys. But I do think that of all of them, Zach Dean had himself a really nice weekend.
Oh yeah, I mean he's 1 goal against Hartford, 2 goals against Providence, all over the place. Sunday against
confident.
Yeah, so he's playing with. He's no longer sort of playing with rookie skates, in my opinion. I think he has the confidence. He knows the skill is there. Knows he has the ability, and now we're seeing with both Dean and Bolduc. Bolduc's up in St. Louis right now, getting his first goal on his birthday, by the way. But you have these 2 young rookies coming down. Here's my kind of overall take on the weekend, and I 100% can understand the frustration from Sunday. But I'll be honest, after our conversation with Patrick Williams last week, talking to Matthew Pekka as well last week. Anyone, if you missed last week's episode, go check that out because I think they share great insight. I'm not frustrated. I'm not surprised. This is a young team dealing with injuries, call-ups. I mean, it is frustrating. The frustrating part is that we see these Friday, you beat a team in Hartford who's reeling right now, actually. Hartford, with their injuries and their call-ups, they're in disarray right now. They're really struggling. You play, I think, a pretty good... You played a high-energy game against Bruins. Might not have been Malcolm Subban's best outing, but again, there for the taking. So again, like you and I, we're going back and forth, and we're like, here we go. Let's just please take care of Bridgeport, right? Please just take care of Bridgeport. And, good news, this is the last time we're in Bridgeport this season. But, it's just, this is a 500 right now team. So my level of frustration is, my expectations is let's get into the playoff and hopefully get hot. I looked over the season. The Thunderbirds right now are 4-4-2 against Bridgeport. I think now you look at Bridgeport's record and you're like, all right, well, they should be better. And you look at like what Providence is like, what 9-0-1 against Bridgeport. I think Hartford is 7-1-1 against Bridgeport, right? So you look at the standings. That's it right there, kind of the separation between the Thunderbirds and Bridgeport. But we haven't really seen a super dominating stretch from the Thunderbirds where they're racking up 5 wins in a row. We haven't seen that all year. And I don't know if it's fair to expect it to happen. I think we're going to see tight games. You're going to win some games. You're going to lose some games. And again, for me, if this team can just get their way into a playoff, I do think if you get a Bolduc back, if you're now, healthy and kind of fully loaded with your skill players, if Rana can get up for the playoffs, you get hot goaltending. I really think the way Colton Ellis has played this weekend, I think he stays up here in the AHL and do you carry 3 goalies? Just
if you got that many injuries, you got a roster spot.
Yeah, so do you keep him up here just to keep eyes on him and to get work? Both Ellis and Zarenko, again, going back to the Wednesday practice, both of them were practicing and looking good. So come playoff time now, we have a well-rested Subban who we know can lead a team deep into the playoffs. He did last year. I don't understand 54 shots against goal on Sunday. That I don't understand, and I would like to see them play. You brought this up, and I completely agree with you, a bit more organized offensively. But then when I take a step back and I remember some of the things that Pex was talking about, and I remember, hearing Patrick Williams talk about the impact of call-ups and rookies. It does make sense that the team is consistently inconsistent, and it doesn't make sense why it's always Bridgeport that has their number, but it is. And so I don't know if any of that at all made sense. If it's right, but it just I guess I'm like I totally understand the frustration, but and you're up 3-1 going late into the second period, and I'm sitting there, we're texting each other, and we're like, and I'm talking to my kids, and I'm like, boys, this is when. Right now, the Thunderbirds, you need to keep the pressure on their necks. They need to get the next goal. And Tyler's like, yeah, well, if it's just if the Islanders score, it's just 3-2. And I'm like, right now, like the way the Islanders have been playing the Thunderbirds, and the way right now Colton Ellis is holding the fort down, they need to score the next goal. And you always feel like when they're playing Bridgeport, you're one goal away from Bridgeport just packing it in almost, right? They're just like, all right. And we can't get there where it's up 3-1 with 5 minutes left in the second period, and you lose 5-3. Again, we're not talking against the Bruins, who has offensive talent all over, up and down their roster. We're talking about the Islanders. Ruslan Ishikov is good. But after that, you would hope for the Thunderbirds to kind of have an answer, and they don't have it. So,
I mean, yeah, and Ishikov finished with 7 shots on goal, which is a lot. But
how many did Gaudette have though? Gaudette
had
like 10.
Bear with me. He had 9.
9.
He had 9.
Well, and let me take a minute too to also shout out your Gaudette sitting at goal 29. He got his 29th goal, his second goal against Providence on Saturday. So he's 1 away from tying the team record. Held by Greco and Furk. So I would anticipate hopefully that's sooner than later.
Yeah.
For
we asked at the beginning of the year where do you replace Furk's production, and
boom,
Gaudette's figured that out. I think giving up 54 shots on goal to me is unacceptable. Giving up 54 shots on goal to the last place team when you have 7 defensemen dressed,
I agree, very
much unacceptable. And I don't. It seems like it's the same thing every time. And if you, maybe this is Belichickian of me and being a Patriots fan, but if you lose to the same, the Jets, how many times are you going to lose to the Patriots before you say, maybe we should change something?
Yeah.
How many times do you watch a team that owns another team and they like the Pittsburgh Steelers? What's their head coach? Their
Mike Tomlin.
Tomlin. We're going to play Steeler football. Okay, well, you're just going to keep losing to the Ravens because they can play Steeler football better than you. So, like, at what point are you going to make some sort of adjustment to handle Bridgeport? And I see no adjustments made. 54 shots is disgusting.
I agree there. Yeah.
And it's why can't you stop Jeff Kubiak? He can't score against anybody.
Yeah.
Like what at some point are we watching and figuring out how to stop this guy? And to me, it looked like really this entire weekend. And I know they played well Friday and Saturday. It looked like 3 teams that had structure and 1 team for 3 straight games playing street ball.
Yeah.
And it looked like they were playing street hockey. It did. It didn't look organized. It looked like they were just saying, go out to the Chevy and hook a left and we'll hit you. It was street ball. And I just had a frustrating time with it.
I agree with you there. I kind of think, to me, they really struggle with their entries into the offensive zone. And a lot of times this weekend, this weekend, in all 3 games were defensive zone turnovers and neutral zone turnovers.
Awful.
And how many times does this team struggle to enter the offensive zone, bad turnover, and then it just becomes reactionary, and it just looks, especially Sunday, And again, the fact it was a 3-3, but it's not an excuse anymore at this point in the season. You're 3 steps behind. You're always a pass behind, and you're spending so much energy just to get it through the neutral zone to then, turn the puck over when you're trying to enter the offensive zone, and now you're chasing, and now you're just reacting to what the offense is doing. And
like we said before, it's like you're playing defense just to make a line change so you can go back out and play more defense.
Yeah. And and I don't think we haven't seen a game like that. I mean, 54 shots. I agree with you. I agree with you. That's a wake up call. That's a bit embarrassing. So, that's effort, that's attitude, I don't know. But
look, like you said, hopefully we don't see Bridgeport very much anymore, but that was
well, we don't go. I believe that was the last game.
I think so. In
Bridgeport. I think they come to the Thunderdome 2 more times this year. And so again, you're 4-4-2 in the season. You got to win these last 2. You can't be at or below 500 against the worst team in the league.
Yeah,
that's just not. Well, but again, I don't want to be pie in the sky. Everything is. I want to try to be fair in my assessment, and I do think personally myself, I was a little bit over eager about the roster, seeing the talent, seeing these young rookies, but the fact is this is an inconsistent team, but. I'm telling, and we've talked about this too, the way they play Hershey, the way they play up to their competition, let this team get into the playoff, and then
against better teams,
and against, hey, we're getting this team's best effort. It's going to be a packed house. There's going to be energy. We know they can match it. And if you get a Bolduc, you get a Dean, now both playing with confidence, you get Vrana to come in and maybe play with a little bit more enthusiasm and team-oriented play. Good goaltending. This very well could be, I'm not saying another Calder Cup run is in the cards. Have you seen anything to make you believe that right at the moment? No, but this can be a very fun team to watch in the playoffs and a dangerous team if you're opposing the Thunderbirds, because they have the skill and ability and the goaltending to win a few games.
Yeah, and let's remember, because I made a list of them. Players that we were without for some point of the weekend include Bolduc, Walker, Kessel, McEachern, Pekka, McGing, Skinner, Washbrook, Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all guys that over the course of these 3 games at some point this weekend were hurt, not playing, called up, sent out, whatever it is. That's a lot. That's a lot of bodies. That's a lot of talent. That's a lot of guys that you don't have. And it's a lot of roster fluctuation when you're trying to, let's face it, when you go 11 forward, 7D, you got a roster that's depleted. And so I think that's a big part of it. So Matt, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown on the games coming up this weekend, and then we'll pay our bills and we'll get out of here.
Sounds good. So we've got Providence on Friday. Away, so we're in Providence Friday. I would expect another game just as we saw this past weekend. I think intensity. I am surprised that Coach Chuck has continued to split Ellis and Subban. Not a knock on Ellis. We know he's fully capable. I think you ride your guy. To me, that's Subban. But Ellis is capable. Ellis going to last weekend, I would expect Subban to get the start in Providence. And then you are back home Saturday to see the Laval Rocket, who I don't believe we saw last year. So this would be the first time Laval is back in Springfield since the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago. And that is also the pregame Pickleball Palooza and the T-Birds Cross Body Belt bag giveaway. Is
that a fanny pack?
That is the cool way. That is the cool way to say a T-Birds fanny pack. So Saturday, pregame pickleball palooza and the fanny pack giveaway. And then Sunday, our what do you call them? Our nemesis, the Isles, the Bridgeport Islanders,
Our white
come to
whale.
town.
It's like Moby Dick out there.
Sunday is the kids club as well as sensory friendly Sunday. This is a game with decreased sound levels. I believe it's a pre-recorded horn sound that's not as loud. They will offer cooling zones around the concourse as well as other areas around the concourse where fans can go if they're feeling a little overstimulated.
Even I'm very quiet. We give you warnings for the horn at the end of the, we'll let you know when there's 10 seconds left to say the horn's going to sound to let people know. And it's a great day. My only issue is I have PTSD from it because that was the last game before COVID.
Oh, was it really? I didn't realize that.
And that was 20, I think 200 or something penalty minutes against Hartford. And that the sensory awareness game was just bodies and blood flying all over the place. Oof. It was a bananas game, and then the whole world shut down. But I am looking forward to that. Yeah,
it's always a nice game. I mean, it's I like the horns and the rowdiness, but I also 100% behind the sensory friendly game and feel like it's just a great way to make all fans feel comfortable and enjoy good hockey. So those are the 3 games coming up. Again, if I'm being truthful, if I'm being honest with sort of some of the things we're seeing, Providence is a toss-up to me. I'm not saying those are points you have to have, but they're important points. I think if you can get away with a point there, that you take that, you're going up into Providence, and Providence right now is playing fantastic hockey.
They're hot.
So to me, more so than the win-loss of it, let's get right, let's get healthy, and let's play good hockey. Let's take these turnovers from this past weekend. And so to me, it's less about the wins and loss against Providence. Let's play good hockey.
Yeah.
Now, when you're coming home and you're playing Laval Rocket, who's sitting in 6th place in the North Division with 51 points, very similar kind of team to you. Your record's sitting there at about at 500, right? You're 22-22-7.
And they played them well over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I look at these 2 games as you've got to come away with again, I mean, it's crunch time. I hate saying you got to win, but you're 3 points now behind the Checkers. You don't want to sit here in 6th place. You're only 2 ahead of Lehigh Valley. So overall, I think this weekend, if you can come out with 4 points, that's great. I am hoping my kind of thought process is that Laval Rocket, those are 2 points to be had. And then when Bridgeport comes to town, you got to stomp them.
Yeah, I have to.
It's just, you look at, I hate to keep talking about Bridgeport. I really do, but they have 16 wins on the season and 4 or 5, and 6 of them have come at the expense of the Thunderbirds. So you've got to stomp out Bridgeport, and that's got to be 2 points. Like I said, we know you can we've beat Providence before this season. We played them well Saturday. So, again, if you can get a point out of it, that's great. And then 2 games at home, you got to win. So I'd like to see 4 points out of this weekend.
Well, we're going to hope for the best. And we appreciate everybody listening, sharing, subscribing, liking, following us. We thank you very much for tagging along. And as always, this episode is brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing, in a new location in Amherst and in Tower Square in downtown Springfield, your go-to pregame spots for T-Birds games. By our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting, bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. And by our new friends at Landscaping That Fitz. Spring is in the air. That means it's time to revitalize outdoors with landscaping that fits. That's FITZ, proudly serving East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, and Wilbraham. Thank you to those fine folks for hopping along as well. Matt, thanks again as always. This is a blast.
Thank
Episode
you.
25. I consider this a bit of a milestone. So
There
let's
you
just
go.
keep rocking
We're
and
a
rolling.
quarter way to the century mark again, and this is possible because of you, the fans. I do, and I apologize. I meant to mention this along with Sunday's game. Friend of the show, Trina King, who plays sled hockey. The Camera Cup game. If you remember the episode where we had Trina on, this is the game that she is playing in pregame. So with your Springfield Thunderbirds tickets, that actually gives you admission to 3 games, the 2 sled hockey games ahead of the Thunderbirds, and then you can stay for the Thunderbirds. And our friend of the show, Trina, will be playing as well. So if you can, Sunday you have a great day of Thunderbirds hockey, both sled hockey and the real thing. So thank you all to listening. Let's have a big weekend coming up for our T-Birds, and let's go get them, boys. Let's go, T-Birds.